Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Dripping in gold? That's cool. Dripping in Velveeta's supremely creamy golden cheesiness? That's respect. Elevate your drip with Velveeta's range of outrageously delicious dips and dishes. Shells, cheese, melty blocks, and heat and eat queso that go all in on indulgence. Flex on your fam with a creamy, cheesy masterpiece and go all in on what you love with Velveeta. Respect the drip and satisfy your cravings. Bring home the drip with Velveeta.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the United Rugby Rewind with me, your host, Lee G, and I'm joined by a rather excellent group of people. I'm joined by Alan, Caelan, Ben, and Hugh. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
So, now, as far as I'm aware, this is the only podcast so far, the only URC podcast so far that has somebody from each of the four areas. So it's all new, it's all very exciting, it's all very keen. There's nobody famous yet, I think. I mean, do you class yourselves, would being on this podcast make you famous, gents? I'm thinking probably so. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking
being alongside Hugh, I think, is the benchmark now at this stage.
Lee, you're notorious. Is that the same thing?
Well, there are people that avoid me. I know that. I know people will literally...
Your name appears on several lists.
It does, unfortunately.
Blacklists, yeah.
But not on Twitter or Facebook lists as yet. But there are, yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip that one.
It's hard to get down on Twitter, I think. Not up to that level yet, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will find out as we go through the season that somebody will turn around and go, "Oh, you're that Lee G," and then that'll be the last we'll hear. So, yeah. So just to kind of give everybody a flavour of what we're going to do. So the URR, the United Rugby Rewind, we're a weekly podcast. We're going to cover the URC. So we have presenters from all four areas: Wales, Scotalia. I'm thinking that's the way around it, Ben. Is Scotalia, it kind of brings it in. Ireland and then South Africa. We're going to cover all games each week, and some of them we'll cover in a bit more depth than others, because obviously there's going to be 8 games, and that's going to be quite a lot to get through. And I know when the South Africans start playing the Irish, that's just fireworks waiting to go off. So we'll set you two off on that one, and we'll all bugger off and have a cup of tea, and then we'll come back about an hour later and then edit half of it out. But so, yeah, you can follow us on social media as normal. You can follow us on Twitter or X, on Facebook, and on YouTube. We'll be on all the usual channels. The way to find us is to search for URC Podcast on Twitter, which I kind of nicked in there. Nobody'd had that, so lovely jubbly. And you'll find us under the WRAP family. So we're part of the WRAP family, which is WRRAP, Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Pods. So yeah, find us on that one as well. So before we kick off with our Welsh regions preview, we'll just kind of let everybody know who you all are. So I'm going to start with yourself, Alan. So just give us a a bit of a flavour of who you are and the area you're covering.
Okay, so I am South African. Hi, everyone. Support the Lions back and from, well, since the early 90s, really. Winning the World Cup 95 kind of solidified that. I've been in the UK since 2020, and I've followed the Pro, well, I suppose we call it the Heineken Cup and the Pro 12, was it back then? Quite intently and that kind of thing. I had less access to the Curry Cup and Super Rugby, so I kind of moved over to the Northern Rugby. So when this URC transition happened, it really helped me a lot to get to watch my team again. So I was quite thrilled when we came over to the URC, getting to watch my team again. So that's awesome for me, and obviously it's nice to be here with all you guys.
Okay, well, we'll soon change that last bit, mate. You're going to get around halfway through the season and go, why did I ever say yes? So, Kaelan, for the, have I got the pronunciation of the name right? Because
it's not bad. It's not bad so far, Lee. I go by Kaelan. People online might call me anything under the sun, as we're all well accustomed to at this stage. No, I'm for my sins. I'm a Munster fan, so that is Kings the Hard Way, etc., etc. I've been on Hugh's Pirate Rugby podcast quite a few times. If anyone recognizes me from that, so I'm a cousin of the rap family who's now in the rap family, although that's a really bad way to go about introducing that side of things. But delighted to be on here. I will talk about all four provinces, unlike some Munster fans who love to tell you about Munster. I'll talk about the four of them, some more than others. And as you'll find out later in this show, I will have strong opinions about certain team names and jerseys and things like that.
I am already given the conversations that we've had already, I know there's a certain section of Wales that is just going to love you for forever. We'll cover that bit later. So, Ben, tell us a bit about you and your association with the game, mate.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm very new to this game. I did a podcast with Hugh about 7 or 8 weeks ago. It was just before the URC final. Kind of came late to the club game. I've always been a Scotland fan. My family are from Scotland. I live in London now. I've lived here for over 10 years. And so my love for rugby came from my father. We watched Scotland win the 99 Five Nations. That's how long ago it's been since Scotland won anything of any note. Prior to that, it was 1990. I was way too young for that, although I am now in my late 30s. So it's been a very barren spell. But of course, Glasgow in the URC, although I'm an Edinburgh fan, I kind of still support both sides really, Edinburgh more than the other. You and I had a conversation about it a couple of months ago that the rivalry between Edinburgh and Glasgow is very, very artificial. Glasgow's biggest rivalry is with Munster. Edinburgh's rivalry, it pales into insignificance when you compare those two teams and how, the semi-final went just before they went to South Africa for the final. But yeah, that's me. I'm very new to the podcast game. Looking forward to our conversations over the forthcoming season. Looking forward to the season this year. I think there's a lot of interest in opening round fixtures. And I've got some interesting views on the kits this season as well, and certain manufacturers who I'm very, very disappointed with. So hope to get into a little bit more chat about that as we go on, because I've got some views that I think I want to share.
And you like pizza and spaghetti bolognese and wine and things for all the Italian listeners as well, don't you?
That's right. So yeah, the Italian team's obviously Benetton and Zebre. My knowledge of Italian rugby is really much the national team. Benetton obviously knocked Edinburgh out of the top 8 on the last game of the season, so a level of bitterness there. Edinburgh just didn't show up. Again, quite a few reasons beyond that. I think they probably rectified that over the summer with some of the signings they've made. But yeah, I'll do my best to make sure I cover all four as equally as possible. But I think my dint is going to be towards the two Scottish teams in that shield. But I will do my best.
See, now you were talking about shirts there, and as you did that, Hugh went, oh, hang fire. So Hugh, give us a little bit about yourself, mate.
So my name's Hugh. I'm the rugby podcast equivalent of Sand. I get everywhere. You may remember me from such podcasts as the Pirate Rugby podcast, Scarlet's Supporters podcast, Rap, the Kaelan Scully podcast, who else have we been on? The Attacking Scrum podcast, the Scrum of the Earth podcast. Anyway, don't worry, I'm not going to be on this every week. I've come on for this special one, and I should be stepping in every now and again. But mostly it will be the one and only Lee G, who will be the Welsh voice on this podcast.
the Welsh voice. See, there's about half of there's certainly within Wales. If I say anything that starts with "Have you seen the Ospreys?" then people will literally start throwing tins of beans at me. If I say anything about Cardiff, well, I probably get a posh pizza or a ciabatta or something like that thrown at me. And
some of their excess money.
Yeah.
Just get away with you.
And so on our rap podcast, I'm quite complimentary about the Dragons because I think the Dragons is just underperforming. I think they should be performing better, every week. And every time I say that, I just, you're taking the piss. You can't say that about it. I'm paying you a compliment. I can't win whichever way I go. And so I'm a Scarlet supporter at heart, which is how I know Hugh. And I played a bit in my time, and my boy played a bit. So I've got. I coached, I refed, I was a secretary, I was a chairman of a club. So, and then I got fed up with the game and walked away. And then I came back and I thought, you know what, we'll just do this. We'll just do podcasts. And it's a lot better. It's a lot more fun than trying to run a club. To give you an idea, okay, I ran a club for just over 18 months, okay? And the first thing that we discussed on the first meeting I went to was cutting down the trees around the outside of the pitch. And the last thing we discussed on my last meeting was cutting down the trees on the outside of the pitch. And I shit you not, I quit when my son was born. He is now 19. Those trees were cut down on his 15th birthday. Yeah. That's just so yeah. I'll stick to podcasts. Thank you very much. So the format for this evening, we're going to cover Welsh sides. We're going to do Welsh sides this week, and then I think probably South African sides next week. I think we'll get the whole Bulls issue out the way first of all next week. I think we'll just do that one, and then each week we'll do a one of the regions, or one of the sections, one of the shields. Is it still? Did we remove shields now?
I think it's still there. I think it's still there.
Do they still give a shield though?
They do. It's actually a hubcap. It's not a shield. It's a hubcap. Yeah.
I went to a lot of museums over the weekend because I was on holiday, and I went to a museum that had a Roman section, a Viking section, a Saxon section, and they had lots of shields in there. None of them looked like anything that they give out in the URC.
So we think that the shields still exist. They just you don't get anything for them. You don't qualify for Europe anymore. It's just a handy way of dividing up podcasts. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why they kept it. It's an easy way of dividing up podcasts. They kept the shields just for us boys. Aren't we lucky? So we're going to cover, let's say, Welsh regions. We're going to take one each, and we're going to give a kind of an idea of leavers, joiners, what the squad looks like, and the expectations for the season coming. So let's start with our friends in Cardiff, because this is the bit I've been waiting for a while. So, Caleb, give us your assessment of Cardiff's off season and what we can expect from them for the coming season.
Well, I just want to shout out to Harley, who is one of your esteemed presenters, brilliant guy, absolute legend. But it is not Cardiff. It is the Blues. As long as we're on this
heritage,
less than a minute. Well done.
It is listen, I love them. I've been in the Arms Park on Heineken Cup final weekends, not for a game. I love them, but they are the Blues as long as we're here. And if we're going to get into jersey talk, I do like the new kits that were launched last week, even if I don't know why you put Josh Adams on the ledge. Just it's an accident to have him. Anyways, that's enough off-season chat for Cardiff Blues. Look, they came 12th last year, and realistically, if they had come 10th or come 9th, it probably would have been a fair reflection. I think, they made an awful lot of games difficult for opposition teams and for their own fans. There's that side of things as well. But they are a team on the rise. I am a big fan of what Matt Sherrod is doing here and what the staff are doing. I don't know. I've all rugby up here, and for anyone who's at home who doesn't know it, it's one of the best servers you can get to look up rugby stuff. And I look at their signings, like Ed Byrne is a decent signing. Josh McNally a weird signing, but a decent signing. Ada Davies, Callum Sheedy is probably the standout one. But kind of the trend with Welsh teams, and we will talk about it a lot during the season, it's just how many players are going in and out, and it's a constant wheel, it's a constant churn, which is really difficult. Like, it's difficult for all 4 Welsh regional coaches. But I do think they have the bones of a good squad there. Now, I think if we're going to talk about anyone being lost from a province, like, Rhys Cara is right up there in terms of the biggest losses. Ellis Jenkins, granted, he may not have always hit the highest form that we know he could hit. He's right up there. Thomas Williams. You could argue, and I'm sure Hugh will play he'll be the boy who cried wolf for the Scarlets later on. But they have lost some key players. And I kind of got back and forth on it this week when I've been looking it up. Like, have they a squad that could get top 8 or squeeze into top 8 when things get condensed? Absolutely. Of course they could. I don't think there's a very obvious weak point in that squad, but at the same time, like, I do have concerns, and for the Blues, like, home form has been really, really good. They do keep games tight, but winning is a habit as well. And, I think for Welsh rugby, that's been a massive factor, just getting into the swing of winning games consistently again. The Ospreys, and I know you're Scarlets fans, they have learned how to do it. Scarlets have been there as well. But Cardiff have been thereabouts and not getting the job done. And will they break down that barrier? Will they fall away? I don't know. But I am excited to see how they go. I'm especially excited about the kind of Callum Sheedy versus Tinnis de Beer kind of battle that will be going on there during the season. I don't think Sheedy will be automatically the first choice out half because De Beer was so good last year. He had a really, really good season. Just your typical, and this is the first compliment I'm going to give South Africa over many, many episodes that we'll have this season. A very typical South African 10. He will not make a lot of mistakes. He'll do an awful lot right. He will guide you around the field. And that's exactly what you need in, no disrespect, but in lower ranked teams in the league. You need guys who are really, really steady. And look, I'm a Munster fan. The side of Ray Lilo, Willis Alaholo, all those guys in the centre just scares me because they always scored against Munster every season, always off first phase as well. All that aside, I do think they have a squad there that can compete. Will they always get everyone fit? I don't know. Like, Cam Winnett is there. Like, I'm just going through their squad. Like, you got Cam Winnett, Josh Adams, Heo Kabango, Ray Lilo, Callum Sheedy, Ala Davies, Mackenzie Martin, Alex Mann, Seb Davies, for instance. I don't know who their first choice hooker is, so I'll just skip past that. Corey Domashowski, Ed Byrne, Kieran Hazarati. There is a good 15 there, but, and this is where the contenders separate from the pretenders, what is their 16 to 25, 16 to 30 like? That's where I'd have some concerns, especially when, and we've spoken about this before, like, Gatland selections won't necessarily relate to how well the Cardiff players are doing and winning and the form and the momentum and all that. And even just, and probably something we'll get into when the season kicks off, how the URC season goes for every team. They will take it in blocks, block 1, block 2, and block 3. You have to get out of the gate fast. You really do. And especially in Wales, where, to their credit, the derby games at Christmas are usually cracking games that are a 1-score game that go either way. I'm not sure if Cardiff are ready to be the top team in Wales just yet, but I do like their chances of just being a sticky team to play against. And look, if they knock off Munster at some point in the season, I know we play them near the end, I won't have the same comments, but that's the whole point of doing podcasts like this. That would be the 1 week that yourself or Hugh would be massive Cardiff fans. So that's why we do this.
So for those that don't maybe know, like, Cardiff was a couple of seasons ago, right at the very end of the season, the Cardiff owner passed away at the end of the season, and there was a lot of and ahhing about, what was Cardiff even going to stay as a side, because he had personally put his hand in his pocket and paid the wages for a couple of weeks in that season. So when he passed away, it was a little bit of up and down. And now Cardiff have been bought by some big money from Saudi. I wanted to say Saudi. It's got its roots in that part of the world. And it's got connections to Man City and all of these kind of things. So in theory, there's a lot of money available to Cardiff. there's a lot of money. Oh, sorry, to the Blues.
To the Blues, yes.
To the Blues.
Thank you very much, Lee.
So there's a lot of money that's going to be invested in that club, certainly in the coming seasons. And when you start it, like you say, with the squad that they've got at the minute, that it can only go up. It can only be a rock solid kind of a thing. It does surprise me how Cardiff have underperformed over the last couple of seasons. They can't blame the pitch because it's 4G. That always used to be the thing. They went through 3 seasons.
You might blame the pitch if it's 4G, or I might blame the pitch if it's 4G, because I know I can't speak for Alan and Ben, but I know we're staunchly against it. But I do, like, that was kind of the point I was going to make, Lee, because there is good players there, and even at younger ages, there's some good players there. But just taking on to that level, it can be difficult, and like, it yourselves with Gareth and how you've ridden and come down and ridden and come down and so forth, and everyone knows that it can be difficult. But like, please, for the love of God, don't give the money to like a Welsh WRU run hotel or something like that. Once that doesn't happen, like, I think we're smooth sailing from there.
So I'm going to open a question out to the floor now, and that's about Callum Sheedy. So Callum Sheedy, a couple of caps for Wales when he was playing for Bristol, was all singing or dancing, sunset every time he sat down, all of that kind of thing. Really just went off the boil last season. And then Cardiff went, here's the wad of cash. And he went, thank you very much. I'll come home. Jared Evans, who was Cardiff's number 1 at that point, went to Harlequins. So Sheedy's like, yeah, okay, here I go. And then you've got Tinis Tabia, why his nickname is not Rupert is beyond me. I think, and Cardiff fans just do not get Rupert De Beer. They don't get it. I don't understand why. I think it's a cracking nickname, but that's for them. So do we think Callum Sheedy will make an impact? Do we think he will be anywhere near where he was in Bristol? Ben, Alan, any thoughts on Callum Sheedy?
I live in the Bristol area. I had a couple of season tickets and that for Bristol watching them, and I think he's a really good fly half. I think he gets the back line moving quite well. But I would always pick De Beer over him, because not many of you might be aware of this, but the Pumas won the Currie Cup in South Africa for the first time in their history, and Tinis De Beer was the fly half there. That's a big deal. That's a massive thing to win it in the Currie Cup in South Africa. And I think that's what got Cardiff looking at him. And I think that that's the big difference between the two of them is you had BMT, big match temperament in a very, very tough environment. And then Callum Sheedy was essentially given all the tools he really needed for those years that he was being back. Then in Bristol, he was given a awesome team, pack of forwards, lovely stadium, and they just couldn't get it finished. They just couldn't get it done. Not that he's the only reason, obviously, but I just think as a South African and seeing how De Beer performed over the long, I mean, it takes a year, doesn't it, to get into playing in the Northern Hemisphere. But I think he's acquitted himself really well. So it's all. But in these nowadays, the way the leagues go, I think Callum Sheedy is perfectly suitable to help back him up, and he'll probably get almost as much game time if you consider the Challenge Cup and the the European Cup and that kind of thing. So you can't go into any of these tournaments with just a fly half. You need 2 really good fly halves, and I think Callum Sheedy does fit that bill to a degree. But again, it's going to be a period of adapting. So I think good, but not quite the finished product yet. And
competition isn't a bad thing, though, isn't that? Like, that's what we talk about with a lot of teams. And like, I'm not sure if Sheedy is exactly the blueprint for what the Blues will want, and that's based on seeing them with De Beer or 10. I understand that, but at the same time, having the option of, okay, if we want to play a little bit more expansive, if we want to do this, we might go Sheedy. If we want to really work on accuracy and, as Alan mentioned, like a winning mentality, a real leader, you might go with De Beer. And having them bounce off each other, is important. But like, I am excited to see Sheedy with that backline if they click. And I understand injuries have kind of killed them a small bit as well. But like, if they can get Grady, Cabango, Adams, Winnett in that backline, maybe even someone like Mackenzie Martin as an edge forward out on the sidelines, they could get going. But you do have question marks. That is the thing with Sheedy. The ability is there. But he's 28 now. Bristol never kicked on. Is that on him? Probably not. But they never kicked on. They have been.
Do we think that there's a degree of, we all know about the financial issues that the Welsh teams are facing. Does that really allow them to go out and get the top guys? Are they going to choose to go and play for a Welsh region? I know Callum Sheedy is Welsh, but if there was another English team that was trying to get him, do we think he would have come and played for them? Cardiff?
Probably depends on if Gatland had a conversation with him. And I understand, again, we've dropped that name twice before we've dropped like Razzie Erasmus or Andy Farrell or anything, but like, it probably depends. And I know Hugh and Lee, you'd have greater experience in this. Surely the WRU were involved, or Gatland was involved in some regard in these conversations.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's a really good question. Would Sheedy have come back to Wales if pick a team, Northampton were in for him or something? Yes, for all of the money woes in Wales, it's amazing how the regions managed to find the money for the marquee player every now and again. Even the Dragons managed to do it with Wainwright and Rio Dyer. And we know, myself and Lee know from having spoken to people like John Daniels at the Scarlets and things, that the WRU do exert pressure on the regions of, hey, can you sign this guy? And they go, no, we don't want him. And they go, well, if you don't sign this guy, then you might find that your catering budget has disappeared for next season or something like that. Allegedly. And
Plumtree. Sorry.
It's going back to the Tinas De Beer signing. The WRU tried to block Cardiff from signing Tinas De Beer because then there would have been no Welsh 10 at Cardiff. Now, how Cardiff have managed to end up with no Welsh qualified fly halves on the books is a question for another day. But I think you guys are right. And the Tinas De Beer played every single game for Cardiff, started all but one last season. And Callum Sheedy's so different. He's coming from a Bristol environment. Cardiff kicked second most of anyone in the URC from hand last season. Bristol won a game of actual professional rugby last season, having kicked the ball 4 times in the whole game. Like, that's unheard of. So to say that...
Hugh, you've opened the door. Let's do it. What do we think of the Premiership?
We're going to avoid talking about the Premiership for a while.
So for me, Sheedy and De Beer aren't necessarily similar. So when you say there's competition there,
definitely not.
I think someone like Sam Costello is very similar to Tinas De Beer. But I don't see that Sheedy is, and Sheedy hasn't played for Wales since I think we lost to Italy at home, back when that was when that was unusual. So it's a great question, and I think I don't think that they've signed him to be second choice. I think that someone's decided that he's going to be first choice. But I agree with you, Alan. I think for the time being, he should be on the bench until he proves that he can take that shirt off De Beer.
Just to wrap the Callum Sheedy conversation, he could be Irish qualified before he plays for Wales again, because it's very feasible he doesn't play in November. He is Irish qualified. He's not going to go play for England. So,
is he Irish? How is he Irish qualified?
Mother, grandmother, something like that. He was. I think the time he was capped for Wales, there was conversations about him going to Ulster, I believe.
I think he played an England Saxons game.
He did as well, yeah.
Yeah, so he was triple qualified before he picked Wales.
So the headline, Wales. The headline out of this so far is Callum Sheedy could go and play for Ireland in the next World Cup. Okay, I'm just
if he's not the starting 10 for the Blues, and leave it at that.
I'm just gonna jot that one down so I don't forget it. Right, let's move on to the Dragons with you, Ben, and let's what kind of, I mean, the big signing for the Dragons this year has actually been off the field and re-signing and all that kind of stuff. So what have you made of the Dragons out of season and what have you?
Last year they were terrible. I don't know why. I think Guy Flanagan coming in.
Welcome to the world of the Dragons. But you're going to get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right. We played them the first game of the season. They gave us a bit of a fright, and then we pulled away from them in the second half. And I'm just looking at the URC table. Fewest try bonus points with Rio Dyer and Ashton Jewett in the team. 1 try bonus point match from last season. So they only scored 4 tries or more in 1 game of the entire season. That's how I'm interpreting that. So correct me wrong. So it doesn't really make sense. They got people like Wainwright in the team. They've got Matthew Screech in the team. I don't know. They had the worst points difference, minus 311 last season. They haven't really made any big signings. I'm looking at the transfer list now. No names are really coming at me. Funaki, they signed from Moana Pacifica in the back row. All the other names, a lot of youth there. There's only 2 people over the age of 30 that have come in. They haven't got a new kit out yet. That's the other thing I've noticed. And I don't know. It's a bit of an enigma with the Dragons, isn't it? Because they don't get many fans at the stadium. And I think they'll continue. I think they're going to be 15th again this season. I think Zebra will finish below them. I think they're going to be the bottom 2 for a while. I just don't see a huge change. I think their inability to win last season, I think they didn't win at home at all the season before last. I think from top of my head, and they went winless at Rodney Parade, which is pretty disastrous. So on that point, I think another season of struggling. And I think again, if Welsh big names are going to come back, they're not going to go to the Dragons. It's not going to be their first port of call. It's always going to be the other 3. And I feel like they're kind of, just because they've been taken into private ownership outside the WRU. I think they've just been kind of left to their own devices, which I don't think is necessarily healthy. And they just become some kind of distant cousin that isn't really part of the infrastructure at the moment. And I think the longer that goes on, the less they're going to be able to compete. I even looked at their Challenge Cup pool, and they're really going to struggle. Got the Lions, got Montpellier, got the Falcons. Falcons are probably the equivalent of the Dragons in the Premiership. Dropped the Premiership in again there. Didn't win a single game last season at all. Obviously, there's no relegation from the Premiership at the moment, and I think we don't know if that's going to come back. Ospreys are in there, and Power. So obviously they'll play one of the 2 Welsh teams. They'll play one of the teams in the league, but they won't play the other one. And then Power, who pretty strong team as well. So it'd be interesting to see. They could lose all their pool games, and they might only win 3 or 4 games again in the season. So I think it's going to be a long, hard season for them. But with 2 wingers like Ashton Hewitt and Rio Dyer, I don't understand why they're not scoring more prolifically than they are. And that 1 try bonus win last season kind of is evidence of that, I suppose. But I just wanted to come back quickly to a point that Alan made about having 2 competing 10s. I know we moved on, but it was really obvious in Edinburgh last year with only having Ben Healy. There was no understudy, and he really started to struggle. I think he played the most minutes. He was sub once in the entire league. I think he maybe came off with the 75 minutes to get 5 minutes to go. And I think it really proves that now Ross Thompson's coming from Glasgow, there's that sort of competitiveness that I think Edinburgh need. But I think it's just evidence of what Al said about having Sheedy and Tennis to be at Cardiff. I went to see Cardiff Edinburgh last year. To be able to play quite well. I think Edinburgh won, but it was a tight game. But it's good to have those 2 10s to bounce off each other, and like you say, play a more structured game or a more expansive game depending on who you're playing.
I just want to mention on a side point, and in agreement with that, by no means am I saying that Tinus de Beer is one of the top fly-offs in South Africa. But
he is the top fly-off in Wales.
But he's pretty complete. His tackling's pretty good. But players like that is what you need sometimes. So Rusty Rasmus says you don't need the best guy, you need the right guy. And Tinus de Beer is that player. Now, is Callum Sheedy that player, or do you still have to buy into that mindset? And I think the Scottish teams have got it. I think they've got the right players. The Irish teams definitely have it. And then as you're talking about the Dragons now, they've got really good players, but that's the question, isn't it? Like, what's your backup? What are you trying to win? If they win the Challenge Cup, if they get to the final of the Challenge Cup, is that a successful season for them? Probably.
It would be. I just don't think they're going to get anything this season. I just can't see it. I think there's a lot. I think Di Flanagan, when I've watched him in interviews, he comes across really, really well. And was it John Ryan, Paul Ryan, who was the coach before, was a disaster, and he obviously sacked. Yeah, that's right. So he was sacked first match of the 2 seasons ago, wasn't he? When they lost to Edinburgh, we gave him a bit of a base, and he went. But it's nice to have that sort of young Welsh coach. I think he's only a year younger than me. He's born in 1985, so he's not even 40 yet, and he's a head coach of a professional URC side, which is really impressive. And he always comes across well in interviews. So but just back him. I think that's what you do with people like that really want to be a structured head coach, got their head screwed on, good team around him, some good players, but just the lack of, again, where do you go beyond that starting 15? The bench is going to be pretty weak. You have to unload your bench, don't you? You can't hold people back now. Rugby, the way that rugby's developed now means you can't just play a 15. You've got to have your full 23 out there. So yeah, I think another season of struggle, and I think I'll stick my neck out. It'll be between them and Zebre for bottom. I don't know who will. I think Zebre will be bottom and Dragons just above, but not by much.
So I'm going to stick my neck out again for about the 4th season now and say I think Dragons might actually surprise people this year.
Oh, you're mentally every season deluded.
Have you seen their opening fixtures though? They're not easy.
Yeah,
they've got Leinster second. They've got Ospreys opening day, haven't they? Then they've got Leinster. They've got the 2 South African teams. They've got 4 home games like the first 5.
They got Ospreys at home or away?
They're at home. Yeah,
they always beat Ospreys at Rodney Parade.
Ospreys, Leinster, Sharks, Lions, Benetton, and then Connacht away. So that's their first 6.
It's actually kind of horrible because if you don't, right? So, like realistically, they're probably, even if they go full strength at Dublin, which they won't, they'll rest half their team. But like, I don't care, we're going to lose this game anyway. If you don't beat the Ospreys, you're then playing the Sharks and Lions, hoping to get a result. And like, it is hope. You don't know which kind of team will turn up. Then you got Benetton. You have to win that. Then you've got 4 home games used up before you get into the proper part of the season, and you might have no wins. Whereas at least last year, their wins were kind of weirdly staggered. There was like 3 or 4 games between each win. In that weird way, I know they beat yourselves, the Scarlets, to beat the Ospreys. But again, when you talk about picking up momentum, if they're heading into say November and they haven't got a win, it becomes tricky. It really does. Di Flanagan, I agree, Ben. I think he speaks really well. I think he's a really good coach, but it becomes tricky. And even last season, they got plagued by injuries, but they came down to Cork to play Munster. They had to put a scrum half on the wing or a wing at scrum half or something. They were plagued by injuries early in the season, and they have a small squad, and it is difficult for them. And like, you don't want to be patronizing, because I know there's going to be Dragons fans here. They don't want you to be patronizing either, and I absolutely don't intend on it. But at the end of the day, rugby is about financials as much as everything else as well. And when their budget is the same as like the players that Leinster don't pay for instance, like how do you compete in this league at times? And
you can't swear at yourself, can you? Yeah, there's a definite disparity, and you gave me a bit of a fright there talking about a scrum half being on the wing, because that gave me horror memory back to when I was playing thirds about 3 years ago. And having to play with 13 people and not have a wing and go to scrum half. So yeah, I know how that feels. It's not the nicest feeling. Each position is very much very. yeah, that's true. Having a 7-1 bench. Yeah,
I played a game once back when I was playing, and the team turned up with 13 players. So the touch judge went in the centre and the bus driver went on the wing. He didn't even have a pair of boots. Honest to God, he was just stood on the wing, and at half time he nipped off for a fag. Everyone else went into a huddle.
Is this supposed to be like when Welsh club rugby was unbelievable and would take down the 2015 All Blacks?
I was playing down the league. I'll be honest. So
that's a Saturday amateur game, in a nutshell, isn't it? Yeah, I know those days well. It started raining. Oh, I can't make it. Yeah, of course you can't. Yeah. The wife needs me to mow the lawn. Of course she does. Yeah,
Yeah. So the name I'm going to ask you to talk about with the Dragons is Philo Tiatia, because I think that's the bit that is the turning point. So if anyone wants to hear Di Flanagan talk, he will be on the Dragons Lair podcast in the next couple of weeks, talking to them. And me and Hugh aren't at all jealous about having podcasts talking to the head coach and having, a real nice hug and a let's have a chat. But Talk to me about Tia, Hugh, because I think that's
Yeah.
the key.
So for Philo Tia, Tongan international, I believe, former Ospreys number 8, is now the defense coach. So the reason why Dragons fans were so excited by this appointment was twofold. One, that Philo Tia has got a very good reputation that precedes him, and two, they didn't have a defense coach before. And I'm not being disparaging to the defense coach that they did have by saying he didn't exist. No, they didn't have one. They did not employ one. And now they do. So they're expecting big improvements off the back of that. And in an interesting interview, again on Dragon's Lair pod, with Reese Blumberg, who's the new CEO of the Dragons, they talked about Tia not only being, adding things from a coaching point of view in terms of skills and things, but also a culture change and leading a culture change. And I think especially after the Boxing Day defeat to Cardiff, where they got hosed in the first half, Dragons realized, no, we need a culture change because it's not a winning environment. It's not a high performance environment, shall we say. So they're hoping that he's going to bring that in. So lots of Dragons fans are very excited about that. 3 wins last season. I think it was 4, including 1 in the Challenge Cup. So it's improvable on. And, I pattern the Dragons cycle of on the Thursday, they name the team and you think, that's a good team. And then you watch them play on the Friday night and think, oh, these are awful. And then you think on the Saturday, why did I ever think that they were going to be any good? And then they name the team next Thursday and you think, that's a good team. And it just goes like that round and round and round. So eventually you think it's got to click. And they just need to get a bit more stability. They need to improve their fitness. I don't think that the fact that they get 25 injuries per season is luck. I think that something's up there. So if they can fix that, get a bit of stability into the starting team and get that culture change into them, performances has got to be the things as well as results. It's a good question about where they're going to finish because it's a tough league. And you think, they'll be better than last season, but you think who's going to finish below them? Sharks aren't going to be that bad again. You're kind of relying on someone to drop off majorly for the Dragons to finish above them. So fingers crossed for them. And I hope that they have got a bit of a change.
I think one of the biggest changes, and that everyone is obviously aware of, by even the fact that the Premier Sport has got the European tournaments now, it's very obvious to everybody that the standard of the URC is only getting better. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
And I agree 100% with Ben. I don't see how. I can see a little bit of improvement that's wanted. I think my team, that I'm going to be talking about, the Ospreys, I think are in probably one of the best positions to improve financially based on the fact a few things they've done. But if you're looking at the league and you are a like Dragons like player or fan, where are you going to pick up points? Where you need to finish? You need 8 teams to finish below you. I just can't, And you need to come up with. You need to either be inventive or you need to come up with different ways of doing that, because you have to find a way. Changing the culture is a big one, but that comes in from. That's across all of the regions, really. That's a Welsh rugby thing as well, isn't it? The culture thing. And
if I just put my analyst hat on, and like you mentioned, it's Tia, it's pronounced, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah, like him going in as defense coach. You look at the Cardiff season last year and the Osprey season last year. Kicked the ball in plentiful supply, kicked deep an awful lot, trust their defense. They were able to trust that defense. The Dragons can't. Like I don't think they knew what they were doing at times. I think if you want them to improve, Tia goes in there and we are becoming a defense first team. We're going to work harder. Hugh mentioned strength and conditioning, things like that. And that's what we're going to do, because ultimately, yeah, you can have Rio Dyer in the wing, but like he's not going to do it all by himself. No team has gone from 15th to 8th because they have a really good winger. Like even if Damian Pennell was in there, I don't think they'd manage. Although
Mateo Carreras played for Falcons.
Exactly. Like that's a brilliant example. So if I was them, and weirdly enough, I wanted to sign any 10 from within Wales, I'd probably like to see them with Tunis De Beer and kick really smartly and accurately, because you've got good kick chasers. They do have a physical back row when everyone's there, with the likes of Botham and or not Botham, Basham. And Wainwright as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Like they do have
They
it
pick
there.
up injuries, don't they? One injury.
That's the thing.
And that's the thing, isn't it? A single injury, and a team like, the Irish teams or a team like the Bulls just pulls out some university guy, and it's a hole filled, isn't it? And there's holes, and you're constantly plugging holes with the Dragons.
Well, what the Dragons have done, one of the first things they did at the end of last season when they went into private ownership and whatever, is they've doubled the size of their academy. So what they've got, all right, it may not be this season, but they've got a lot more players coming through who will be at that standard a lot quicker. So it may not be this season. I think there'll definitely be an improvement from the Dragons this season. But as those academy players start coming through, you will start to see, actually, we've lost a decent player, but actually there's a not bad player coming on. Whereas now it's a decent player gone off. Who's that coming on? I've never seen him before, or he's been out injured himself for 6 months, and
They had a good cohort with the under-20s, with the Wales under-20s.
Yeah.
They had a good block of players with them. Just stat for you: Dragons last season used 5 different open side flankers in the first 5 games of the URC season.
Asham did get banned for a really stupid tackle. Should we use that as the asterisk?
That's what he does, though. It's not a decent game unless Basham's had at least one card.
Yeah, but at the same time, when we're talking about they need this, that, and the other, not ideal.
Okay, let's move on from the Dragons and move on to the Ospreys. So, Alan, you've already said.
Do I have to stay quiet for this bit?
I'm going to mute you. Yeah, I have the power to mute, and I will use it. I'll bite your lip or something.
Yeah, I don't think this will be a very long one. I think we all know the Ospreys are probably in one of the best positions of the URC for the Welsh teams. They've got a pretty good setup. They're pretty good director. They've lost a few of their players. So like George North has obviously gone. He was a bit of a stalwart. They've lost Alex Cuthbert, but it was probably time for some of these players to move on. They've brought in Phil Singer, is it, from Leicester Tigers? So that's a good... and Kieran Hardy from the Scarlets, he's come over as well. And then probably the most important thing from a Scarlets point of view is they've obviously announced that they've got a new stadium coming, which is going to double the capacity of their, I think it's 4,500, it's going up to 8,000. So
no. 4,500 is their average attendance. The stadium capacity is 22,000.
Right. Okay. So
I'm sorry, it's just that's a fact. That's not an opinion.
To a game then. so basically they've got a plan. I know that their director he's always on Twitter. He's quite engaging with the fans. The issue for the Ospreys is there's a few teams which finished below them last season, which are probably not going to perform as badly as they did this season. So we've got Edinburgh, the Sharks, and Connacht. So they just finished 8th. So it's going to be a close one for them as well. And we have to see how it goes with the Ospreys. But I mean, pretty optimistic. I think if they made it to the top 6, 7 or 8, I don't think we'd be surprised. I think we can expect at least one of the teams. Benetton finished above them, so they can definitely do it. They've lost a few players. They haven't brought in many, but they seem to have a pretty good structure in place. And they do, out of all the, from my point of view, they seem to have a pretty good team atmosphere and stuff about them. They've got a good defense. They're pretty good with their forwards, so they've got a pretty good base to jump off from, really, I think. So they're probably best placed out of all the Welsh teams to do well this season and look to finish in the top half.
Hugh, wasn't it you and I that you remember the data point that the Ospreys going into the last 2 or 3 games of the season had a less than 2% chance of qualifying for the top 8?
I never accepted that stat. That was a stat that was put around by the Elixir predictor that the URC were big on, saying that they had a 2% chance of winning.
Yeah, but it was Benetton and Edinburgh who were playing each other on the last day, didn't they?
And they were playing Cardiff.
And it was our worst performance of the season.
and it was between the Lions and Ospreys who were going to we just needed Benetton or Edinburgh to lose.
Yeah, the Lions had to get a bonus point away at Stormers, and
Connacht needed to beat either Munster or Leinster away to stay ahead of the Ospreys.
And Edinburgh needed to beat Benetton with a bonus point, and they hadn't won a game away from home all season or got a try bonus point away from home all season.
So that's they were hoping, but I mean Ospreys are better than that. In fact, I would probably class them as it was pretty close between them and the Lions. If Ospreys finished with minus 35, the Lions finished with a 128. So lucky, but then it was in the Lions' hands. The Ospreys won one game more, so it was close. The Lions had I think it was 14 bonus points. Yeah, the Lions had 14 bonus points. Ospreys had 10. It literally came down to one win, and then the Lions would have knocked the Ospreys out of the top 8. But like I said, I think the Ospreys are in a pretty good position at the moment. They've got and they are trying to improve. They're actively trying to get better. So they're in a good position, I think. Well placed.
So just two words there. Sorry, Lee. I'll be 2 seconds because I've rambled up and all. Nicky Smith. How do you move on past, like, I understand different opinions, but like that man would scrummage a house off its foundations, and that's really all they had in that front row. So I worry for them.
I mean, I do think there's a few issues, but we all know that Jack Morgan was injured for quite a bit, so he's back as well. And they do have the players. There was a few tries they scored off mauls. I think they line out mauls. If you've got a good line out maul and your scrumming, their scrumming was decent, you've always got a chance, don't you? So I think as far as like, this their attack was probably lacking at times, but if they can take what they did defensively and with the forwards last season, and they can just add a bit more accuracy with the kicking and a bit more accuracy with their attack, I think it'll definitely help. You are right, though. I mean, they've lost a few, but they probably had no choice. These are the same issues that all teams have. I know the Lions lost players. I think most of the other teams, the Welsh teams, lost players that were important to them. It's just one of those things. You just have to move on, don't you, and try and see what you can do. But they've got a good, solid base to kick on from.
That is the fun thing about having a Lions fan on the pod, is that the Welsh fans, when they start moaning about money, are going to get no sympathy of this.
No, we're all playing for the Bulls and the Stormers. There you go.
So before we round that bit up, if anyone's watching on YouTube, just go back a couple of minutes to the bit where Alan said there are a few teams below the Ospreys, and watch how Ben does this and start saying, yes, you remember Edinburgh, don't you? So yeah.
Just to chip in, Edinburgh versus Ospreys up in Edinburgh last season was one of the worst games of rugby I've seen in a fair old long time.
17-15, wasn't it? I think it was. Yeah. It was pretty poor. Yeah, it was just kind of March time, wasn't it? I think off the top of my head. But yeah, you're right. It was a Friday night game or Saturday night. Anyway, it was an evening game and it was a shocker.
And I add in Ospreys Munster in Liberty Stadium this year in the torrential rain. And listen, there was like 5 tries scored in that game, but 2 of them came from intercepts.
Yeah, and that was the most hilarious game of the season. Like when Frisch scored, was it Frisch who scored the one in the corner where it like you kept thinking, oh, the ball's gone out. Oh no, it hasn't. Oh, the ball's gone out. Oh,
yeah, South Africa's point of view, the Ospreys playing games like that is a good thing. It shows that they can disrupt other teams. So it gets boring.
They're brilliant at it.
As a South African and a Springbok supporter, we don't mind that, you know.
Oh,
you
no,
can
of course you don't.
stop line out. It's a winning formula, guys. Come on now.
No, I agree. It's their biggest strength is their disruption and how they slow teams down. They kick brilliantly. I'm not Owen Williams' biggest fan. I'll put that out there, but he managed the team really well last year. And again, maybe this is the jealousy factor that's kicking in, but like, if you want to go listen to Toby Boots' interview with the lads, like do, because he's an unbelievably likable guy. He's one of my favorite coaches in this tournament, but he's a very good coach as well. Do you know, like they're probably the best Welsh squad on paper, but they're also a good squad with a really good coaching ticket.
So there's a couple of bits with their squad from last year. I mean, Jack Morgan was pretty much injured for most of I think he only played 1.5 games, I think, for the Ospreys. And we know, because we made him over at the Scarlets, just how destructive he can be. In fact, we made pretty much most of their side, to be fair. But they lost Jack Morgan and Harry Deeves came in, and Harry Deeves he's like Jack Morgan, only with a bit more gas in the tank. And he's a player. I think Justin Tipperick is probably at the end of his career. I think he's got one season left on this contract, and then I think if he's got any sense, he'll go, I'm still in one piece. That's it, I'm done. So you've got Harry Deeves coming through. You've got Jack Morgan there. Front row, you've got Dewi Lake. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a hint and tip on this, okay, guys? Dewi Lake is either Dewi Lake, Dowie Lake, or Dewey Lake. And whichever one of those three you pick, you'll be wrong, because it's very much split. Yeah.
This is going to be my blues. I'm going to try and say everyone differently every time.
Yeah. Every time you make that guy Lake at the front, that's the easiest way to get round it. I'll just
another thing to remember about the Ospreys is that their links with the Cheetahs as well. So last season there was a couple of games where they drafted in a couple of the Cheetahs guys to fill in, and they did all right from that. So that's potentially another good idea. These Welsh teams could follow that format and link up with teams in South Africa. You're always going to get like South African teams, because half of the Currie Cup don't even play in the URC. There are teams out there and there are players out there that are.
Well, wasn't that the reason why the Ospreys going to play at the Stoop, one of the league games last season, wasn't it? Is obviously me living in London, Southwest London, South African, Australian, Kiwi diaspora there, and I think the Ospreys went to play a league game there on a Friday because it was just a huge opportunity for them to get their fan base wider and towards the sort of Southern Hemisphere. So yeah, that all does
all the Cheetahs home games in the Challenge Cup are played. I think it is in London.
Yeah.
It's not Amsterdam for the Cheetahs, no?
Oh yeah, Amsterdam. That's it. Yeah.
So Sharks played
they're the only team that don't get to play home games. I don't know if it's changing this season for the teams that get to the semis and the final, but the Cheetahs are there and thereabouts. So.
But that's come from the Ospreys ownership structure, because they're owned by Y11, who also own, I'm wanting to say the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. Hurricanes and the Cheetahs. So the whole point of that is that they can pop them. And I'll be fair to them, I think they've just signed the postman, they called it. What's his name? Yeah. So, and that was he was one of the temporary moves. There's a couple of Ospreys have gone down to
the Ospreys meme of announcing signings of players that already play for them.
Yeah. This is why I should put you on mute, too. Yeah. But what the Ospreys are doing, I mean, the stuff with the new stadium, they're playing, we call it the Library at the minute. The Liberty Stadium, everyone just calls it the Library because it's that quiet in there. It's a 25,000 seater stadium, I think it is. And the Ospreys, you can literally count them on one hand. When we talk to the Ospreys boys on our podcasts, everyone knows each other. They know their seat numbers, because you can just pick them out, and the attendance will go up or down depending on whether you count the touch judge and the physios as part of this crowd or not. It's a ridiculous situation for the second biggest city in Wales to be in a position where you can only get 4,000 people. There was one game where it was like 2,300 people or something for a home game, and it is ridiculous, and nobody really gets it. I think it's because of the football. I think it's a football thing. I think Swansea as a city has got issues in itself in the way it projects itself. And I think the move to St Helens is a part of changing that. It'll be more family friendly. It'll be more student orientated. It's a ground that they'll share with the university. It'll be a ground they share with the rugby club, the Swansea Rugby Club and things like that. So it'll be more of a community hub. Whereas at the minute, it's just the rugby
satellite stadium. It's a satellite stadium, isn't it? Yeah, that's how I describe it.
Yeah. So I know this is we're being recorded and all of this, so I'm going to say this quickly. fair play to the Ospreys for doing that. Okay, let's move on. Took a lot to say that, but it really did. Right. So let's finish off then in the only part of Wales that's actually important, Hugh, which is down west. Westerer is Bestera. So tell us about the Scarlets and their
Okay,
off-season.
so this is my first time talking about the Scarlets for the 2024-25 season. So momentous occasion. The a lot of frustration around the Scarlets last season about the bad start. We had the great ends to the season before last, where we got to the Challenge Cup semi-final, and we went on a mad run at the end of it. We gave Munster a scare. We beat the Sharks when they were fully Springbok laden at home. All these things, and then we got our hopes up for the beginning of last season, and then absolutely tanked, as bad as it's ever been in terms of what we're watching on the pitch. And it was bad for pretty much for the first half of the season. It was really unacceptable. And then around Christmas and just after Christmas, it started to pick up, and there were some changes to the coaching setup. The defense coach left. What's his name? I can't believe I've forgotten the Jared Payne, the defense coach. Was the attack coach, is now defense coach, but still attack coach. And now we've had Lee Jones come in, his job is a little bit unclear. We're not sure exactly what he's going to be doing. And then, so that's all that been moved around. And Dwayne Peel's still the head coach, but he's looking after backs. But Jared Payne is still also looking after backs. And Emma Phillips is the scrum coach. But we've got Albert Vandenberg from the Lions, who's the forwards coach, but he doesn't do scrums and blah, 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 blah. So it's all a bit muddled. But we did get to the end of last season and kind of turned it around. A lot of that was to do with Sam Costello and Tame Plumtree coming back. Tame Plumtree pretty much changed the pack on his own, and Sam Costello changed everything else on his own. So, you know, the pressure is on there because we've got quite a favourable start to the season in terms of we've got Benetton away, which is a tricky start. But then after that, we've got Cardiff at home, Connacht at home, Cardiff away. We did the double over Cardiff last season. Then Bulls at home early in the season. So you would expect that would be the Bulls touring team, and the Bulls don't tend to tour that well. And then we've got Zebra at home. And that's our first block before the end of November, after the November internationals. And so there's a bit of pressure for us to kind of perform in those games. We need to win 4 of those, really, and perform well in all of them. And if it kicks off like the beginning of last season, where we're taking 50 every other week, it's really going to turn sour pretty quick. So it's that game again away in Treviso is going to be a bit of a cup final first off, because if we win that or get a couple of losing bonus points out there, we're on to a really strong start to the season. But if we get hammered, you have to remember as well, for all the people who talk about lack of an off season, it's 56 days between the last Wales game and the first Scarlets game. So all the players have been in and have had a pre-season and things. And Dwayne is, this will be his 4th season, Dwayne Peel, the head coach, and he's got the coaching team underneath him that he wants, then people he's worked with before. He's got the support above now with Lee Jones, who's got a very strong CV. So there is a bit of pressure. When I talk about signings, so everyone always says about the Scarlets, oh, the pack. But it's kind of for me, it's a bit of a lazy bit of analysis, because people go, oh, Scarlets type 5 is rubbish. But you ask them about players and individual, like Ryan Elias, go, oh yeah, he's a good player. You go, Alex Craig, like, oh yeah, he's a good player. Vir Fafita, Sam Lousy, oh yeah, good players, yeah. But then you say Scarlet's pack, and they go, oh, Scarlet's pack's rubbish. Like it's one of those, and maybe it's a bit of the depth. But now we've added Henry Thomas, has come in, international tight head prop, who I guarantee people will be demanding start for Wales at some point this season. Alec Hepburn has come in, Scottish international. Marnus van der Merwe, another Cheetahs guy, has come in. They're all front row signings. Max Douglas is a lock. And we've got a couple of really exciting props and locks coming through the academy now. Our under 18s team was excellent last year. Very, very, very good team. And then we've got a couple of extra signings as well. Blair Murray's come from the Crusaders and things. So it's kind of a not really an excuses kind of situation with the Scarlets. And I think, for all of other people might scoff at this, and for how poor we were at times last season, I think if you offered like best 15 for best 15, put us up against Connacht or even someone like Ulster, you would say like, we've got Verfafita, those kind of things. Joe Roberts is going to be Wales's outside centre for the foreseeable. Eddie James is really promising. Our team is. I'm not saying it should be competing for silverware, but it should be in and around that playoff spot. So this season is really going to be a case of if we're crap again, it's not going to sit well with many people, and there's going to be some really tough questions asked because the Scarlets board have backed Twain Peel to the hilt, and if it goes wrong again, they're going to be really up the creek without a paddle. And I feel like we've got a bit like Cardiff. We've got the first 15, maybe the first 23 to do a job. I'm not expecting us to compete with the big four of like Glasgow Bulls, Leinster, Munster. I'm not expecting us to compete with those teams, but sort of 6th, 7th down, we should be able to give these teams a game at home. I'm not saying win every single one. So, like I said, if we're taking 50 every other week, it's going to be a really bad look. So I'm hopeful, and there is a level of expectation. And I do back the players. I do think we've got some really, really good players. Like Sam Costello is my favorite player. So yeah, so I'm kind of
Can I ask a question
accepting of poor results.
The question to all of you: if one of the Welsh teams won the Challenge Cup, would that be a successful season for them? And if so,
yes, 100%. Yeah.
Why don't they target the Challenge Cup?
They do. They just lose.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
they
do.
do. Black Lion
they are
game.
targeting it.
Yeah, Scarlets lost at home to Black Lion last season. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we do
Full-strength
target it. Cardiff have won it twice, and they will tell you all about it. Or you don't even need to ask.
Who won it?
Sorry, the Blues.
The Blues.
No, they were actually the Blues.
Blues.
They were the Blues when they won it. Cardiff Rugby
Yeah.
have never won the Challenge Cup.
Exactly.
No, the Blues.
Can I ask you a question as well, Hugh? Because if you're okay, the Ulster thing is absolute rubbish. I won't accept that. I'm sorry. Like I like the Ulster squad, I really do. But if
John Cooney wears Gareth Davis pajamas, but carry on.
Who? John Cooney. Yeah. Well, I never said I like John Cooney, so it's fine. But if you're looking at this Scarlet squad, and I do agree, I think they probably underachieved last year with just 5 wins. Like I do agree there, and they played Munster, and I've watched them against all 4 provinces last year, and I do agree. But you look at the players that they've lost, and I understand, okay, like Jonathan Davies is older, Scott Williams is older, like Wyn Jones is older, Ken Owens, Johnny McNichol, Samson Lee. It is still big losses. And you do wonder, like, Dwayne Peel is going to be under pressure this year, understandably so, as you said. But, like, it's going to be hard, like, to dig it out, especially with a void of leadership. Even someone like Kieran Hardy. Scrum half's a good position for you. I do like your halfback. I've had the conversation with you before. But when you're looking for experience and you're looking for, like, such a vacuum of leadership to be leaving the room, that is going to be difficult in itself, though, isn't it?
Leadership was absolutely a massive problem last season, and I can remember games where they'd throw they'd be setting up for a line out, and just before the ball got thrown in, they'd all turn to each other and go, "What are we supposed to be doing again?"
Yeah.
And particularly the Black Lion game was very disappointing. And there are players in that team. There was a weird moment where Sam Lousy was made captain and things. It was just a bit odd. No, I love Sam Lousy, great player. I don't see how he's been made the captain. I think when you talk about the players who leave, I think the thing, if it all goes wrong, the thing that will be what lynches the leadership of the Scarlets will be, and I'm talking about the above the team leadership, is that we brought in a high volume of non-Welsh qualified players. I think we're now able to field a full non-Welsh qualified pack. And we've let go not only Welsh qualified players, but Scarlets Academy products like Wyn Jones, who's just been signed by Harlequins, of all people. Who else are we talking? Kieran Hardy, Academy product, has gone to the Ospreys. Ryan Combe was the big shocker. A lot of people didn't expect him to go here. A lot of people would say that he's a starting winger for us. Has been let go again. Looks like he's going to pop up again at the Ospreys.
Yeah.
So that will be the thing that will look extremely bad on the management if things go wrong. Like I say, there's reasons to believe that things won't go wrong, But that was kind of our feeling going into last season of like, this is going to be good, and it was not. So I feel like I've been the most negative. Oh no, we talked about the Dragons. That was pretty negative. But the the problems of the Scarlets was not playing staff last season. It was game plan, tactics, conditioning, all those off-field things.
So before we wrap all it up, that's the longest Hugh has ever spoken without saying the words Alex Craig on how can you miss Alex Craig out of all of that stuff? Anyway, it's it's going to be a pretty crazy year for the Scarlets, and if it doesn't work, they will cut it. There is no, they have to, one way or another. Either it changes, as in results change, or something else changes, and that something else will be Dwayne Peel. And he survived last year, and we were big supporters of him last year. We were big, let's give the guy a chance. But yeah, there is only so much of that you can do.
Yeah, right. Just to tie a bow on it, when we talk about where the Welsh teams will finish, if you look at like the South African Shield, that's really hard. The worst team in it is the Lions, and they're good. Like the Scottish Italian Shield has got one bad team in it. The Irish Shield has got arguably no bad teams in it. The Welsh Shield is kind of doable. If you're the good team in the Welsh Shield, you've got a good chance of being there or thereabouts for a playoff spot because you're playing easier games. So this is my kind of point about, despite all of the crazy negative news stories that come out of Welsh rugby, at the same time, the pressure is on a lot of people in Welsh rugby this season.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of finishes us all up. And there's something that you said that I just wanted to round up with everybody on. So we're going to go around the table, and I want you to give me where you think your side is going to finish. I say your side, the side that you're doing tonight, where you think that side is going to finish in the table at the end of the season. And Ben, this is really difficult for you. I know. Let's start with Ben. Where do you think the Dragons are going to finish at the end of the season, mate?
Second bottom.
Second bottom. So we're going 15. Okay. And I think that's about the 6th time you've actually said that between here and the WhatsApp chat. Alan, where do you see the Ospreys finishing this year, mate?
I'm going to be optimistic, and I'll say 7th. So I'll give them one spot higher than last season.
They'll snap your hands off of that. They really will. Caelan, where do you think the Blues are going to end up?
I want to be positive, but I'm going to say 13th. I think the Scarlets will jump up. I think the Sharks will jump up. So I'm going to go 13th.
13th. Oof. And Hugh?
6th. One place above the Ospreys. Just the joke is that Lee actually genuinely in writing predicted Scarlets to finish 6th last season.
Yeah, I did.
That was Lee's real prediction.
You're only off by 7 places. It's not too bad.
When we started, the bit that winds me up with the Scarlets is and Welsh sides in general, to be honest, is we have a pre-season and we put out like a B and a C team, and we might put out the side that actually starts for half of one game. And then we go, right, okay, that's it, everybody back in. And go. Then they play 3 warm-up games, and then none of those combinations then play together for the rest of the season. And then we wonder why we have slow starts and then we can't build momentum. And I'm like, just play your side, get your team out, play them the first half of each of those 3 games, and then let the other boys have a run around. But it winds me up every year, and it's about to start. It'll be next week when they start playing friendlies next week, and they're going to do it again, and I'm not even going to watch. I'm just going to sit there and go, see, I told you. I'm not even watching, but I know what's happening. Right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your company this evening. It has been an absolute, it's always weird when you start a podcast and it's the first one that you do and you're never quite sure how it goes, but it's been absolutely belting tonight. Thank you so much for your time. So just to let everyone know, one of the things that we will do through the season after each game is we'll put a little post on our Facebook page that we call 3-Word Thoughts. And so you just summarize your thoughts for that game in 3 words. And 9 times out of 10, when it's a Welsh side, at least one of those 3 words is a swear word. That's fine. So what we'll do when we put this podcast out is we'll put it on our Facebook page as well, and we'll put your 3-word thoughts for where you think Welsh teams are going to finish or where you think your Welsh side will be this year. And then we'll do that next week when we do South Africa and Ireland and for Scotalia as well. And we'll go from there. Okay, so find us on Twitter, find us on social media, find us on Facebook. You can watch us on all the usual places. And that's it, gents. Thank you very much for your time tonight. We're all done. Have a good one, and I shall see you again next week. Enjoy your rugby, gents.
Thank you, everyone.
See you later.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review, and share us on socials if you can. And join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.